I think that we've done our jobs in Afghanistan, Iraq, everything. I think what we should do, however, is before we come back, train the military and the police over there so that they can handle their issues.
Mr. Carvey.
I will have to agree with her. I also believe that the troops do need to come home. We've been there long enough. And I also believe that in terms of non-combat roles, we need to let the soldiers that do support us there help train them so that they can take it on their own. Because if we do not, then surrounding nations will be able to easily conquer Afghanistan, and that's what we've been trying to not do since the beginning. So if we can help them, train them, let them defend themselves, then we will be able to leave.
Mr. Jordan.
I do agree with my fellow candidates who have spoken so far. We should pull troops out of Afghanistan, but we do need to keep people in there as train the military, the current security forces that are present there. They're not yet ready to go out on their own, and probably within the next 5 years they probably won't be ready, even with our help. So we need to start fighting it with the technology that we have. I believe we can start fighting this war through technology in this era.
Mr. Houghton.
I am in agreement with my fellow candidates and President Obama that we need to pull our troops out of Afghanistan. Currently, we are overusing our resources in Afghanistan, and they've become dependent on our involvement in the Middle East, and we have to slowly pull our troops out.
Colonel.
I believe that to pull the troops out at this point in time would be the wisest of decisions, because the state that Afghanistan is in right now doesn't have a government in which is stable enough to support functioning on its own. So to pull all troops out is not the best idea, because while yes, you say they need to be trained, it's not in our best interest right now to just pull all military forces out, because if something were to happen, then we would immediately be blamed because we were the last major power there, and to just pull out now would be pointless.
Okay. Would anyone care to make a rebuttal? You guys are ready to do something?
Wait, I was just speaking. This is something that I didn't exactly agree with. Like,
I said we should train them.
we train them.
So they,
Yes, but how long do you think they should stay in there and train them when they're not quite ready to? They're not quite ready to actually start fighting on their own. They probably won't be for the next 5 years, even if we do start training them. I mean, we should pull troops out, but we should continue to have our hand at least guiding them a little through our technology.
if they haven't got it by now, then they're not gonna get it.
Well, that's not a very good defense for putting that there.
But to
I'm going to be
say,
frank about it.
You out.
but to say that just to pull out the troops at this point is to basically throw away the years of work that have gone on in Afghanistan, and also the thousands of lives that have been lost, and all the money spent. If you pull out now, then you're going to put Afghanistan right back in the state that it was before we even set foot over there, with potential for terrorist groups to arise and all kinds of damage be done to the world as a whole. So if you pull out now without at least setting up some form of a democratic government that can make Afghanistan stable, then it's going to be like it's nothing that ever been done in the first place.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Obviously, terrorism is not restricted to people showing up and bombing an airport like what just happened in Brussels. Terrorism is now gone digital. So what I would like to know is, given the growth in digital attacks, how would you address the nation's cybersecurity? I want to know what demands you would place on the government that's possibly harboring foreign hackers. What would you do to them to try to deter them from carrying out such cyber attacks? And this question is going to begin with Mr. Cardin.
Well, we all know that we are now a part of the information age, so technology has spread all across the world currently. Cybersecurity has become a very big threat for every single country. So I believe that we should set up an even stronger cybersecurity program in order to help encryption codes and be able to defend ourselves from other cyber attacks. If a foreign hacker would indeed try to attack us, we would be civilized, but basically say if they try to get through our access, then we would attack them directly as well.
Mr. Jordan.
I believe that we need a special division created to counter these any like foreign digital attacks, keep our secrets out of enemy hands, and we would handle if a foreign entity was involved in actually attacking us, then we would handle it as any other affair. We try diplomacy first, and if that failed, then we start pursuing even harsher diplomacy, essentially, as any other situation.
Mr. Houghton.
It's my opinion that in the event of digital terrorism, it should be treated exactly the same as any other terrorism, such as the attack on Brussels. We have to seek out the source and stop it, or else attacks as such will continue to happen. And in the event of digital attacks, it's even possible for even more sensitive information to be leaked and cause nations even more distress than even normal terrorism.
Colonel.
I agree with what Mr. Houghton and Mr. Jordan said. To treat cyber terrorism any different than another act of terror is completely naive at this point in our times and technology. And also, a special division needs to be created to deal with these problems because we don't necessarily have the means of dealing with it because we don't have the positions available. And this would also create more jobs and help the economy also. But the acts of terror is going to keep happening if we don't come up with some way of attacking it ourselves.
Ms. Holly.
I agree with my fellow running mates. If a government is harboring a terrorist, they're pretty much our enemy, especially if that terrorist is attacking us. Therefore, we should put harsh consequences on them. Because we should treat this just like anything else. A threat is a threat, no matter how it is.
Anyone care to respond? Go further onto your argument. Do you guys need some more response cards? Is that the problem?
I don't even know how many I have these.
I need some.
I can't find
Really
it.
don't. Everybody like
We got plenty.
Where there were several Americans there that actually did perish. So what I would like to know is what would you do as president to ensure the safety of Americans, whether they're in America or traveling abroad? And I believe this question goes to Mr. Jordan.
All right, so I propose that we employ a level of security across the states to eliminate threats before they even occur. I'm saying like we create counter-terrorist centers, essentially, move all the military gear from police, local police stations to that, whatever they have, whatever it's a little bit dangerous. But yes, and they will investigate potential terrorist acts and try to stop them before they occur.
Mr. Houghton.
Whenever I think about national security, I think the first thing I think of is the TSA. Americans, almost all Americans, are uncertain and unfaithful in the TSA in its current state. It's not doing its job to protect them, and it's violating their personal privacy unnecessarily. I believe more research should be done into the techniques that TSA uses to make it more effective in preventing terrorism.
Colonel,
I believe that in the organization that I spoke of earlier, that could be used for detecting and combating cyber terrorism, it would be also used to just secure our nation as a whole and to try and keep other terrorists from coming into the country, be it through the internet or be it actually in person, because national security is one of the things that has been of most concern post 9/11, and that still isn't up to what it needs to be today.
Ms. Holland,
As president, I would implement more embassies in other countries. That way Americans would feel protected. I would also have stricter regulations on flights and on immigrants. I didn't mean that. On flights. Go against what it says on the paper. I'm gonna have to use a rebuttal.
Okay. For the safety of America, I would suggest that there would be extra defense on all of our borders and ports. That way anything that wants to come in, we'd be able to stop before it gets there. Also, in any travel areas that we go to or send other Americans to, there'd be extra security and defense there. That way everywhere that Americans go, we'll be safe.
You want in the division that handles cyber security will also handle terrorism. It would be more efficient because the more specialized something is, the better it is at its job. Why not create two specialized divisions for each, both one for counterterrorism and the other for cybersecurity, which would be more efficient at their jobs.
Well, I just said that for time's sake, but it would be sort of like subcategories if you want like an anti-terror division of the government, and within it you would have cyber terrorism and physical terrorism, where one would handle, as you said, acts of terror on the internet or forms of technology, and then others would be physical acts of terror. So it would be sort of under the same branch, and then there would be subcategories of it.
Okay, I'm gonna add on to what I said earlier.
okay?
Which part? I need to start the time.
Take that.
The part that we made. Okay. Stop. To make Americans safer at home, we will have stricter surveillance on possible terror suspects. I don't really, the question is often posed that like, well, that's an individual's rights over a nation's rights. Myself personally, I care about the nation as a whole. So if one individual is a threat to the nation, then that individual is gonna have to be taken care of.
Mr. Jordan,
I don't know. That system's already in place.
It's already in place.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I said I was.
You just said you put something that's already in place into place.
Okay, but it needs to be stricter. It's not very.
It already is very.
And how would you know, Mr. Cole?
I don't know, but I know that they are flag words, and that's not my report.
Mr. Houghton,
Ms. Holland,
Oh my God.
if I heard you correctly, you said you'd be targeting specific groups.
I didn't say groups.
What did you say then?
Individuals.
Individuals? How would you spot these individuals?
Through their actions and what they say, basically what they say, how they do at certain things, and just like, yeah, suspect. Class not sass, right?
who is going first there? Houghton had his hand up before you. Mr. Houghton?
Okay, Ms. Holland,
Mm-hmm.
you said we should establish more embassies in foreign nations. So how would you suggest we go about doing that? Where would you find the funding to do so?
Maybe that's what it's about.
As I said time and time, I'm going to create more American goods that we can sell to other countries to have more incoming money. Answer your question. Next.
Okay, so you were saying you would target individuals based on, just, what was the word you used again?
Suspect stuff.
Yeah, like suspicious things. Does this include race, culture, etc., ethnic groups?
Absolutely not.
Like, let's see, are you sure?
I'm positive. I'm absolutely positive.
Because it did sound a little bit like that.
Did it? Well, I'm sorry that you interpreted me wrong.
Colonel?
Ms. Holland, you say that you're going to stimulate the economy in such a way that all this money is going to be available and to build all these embassies abroad. But if you're just taking the money that we're pouring out in one place and putting it in another, you're not going to fix the debt in any shape, form, or fashion. It's pretty much just going to stay at the rate that it's worsening as it is right now. Because if you just take money here and put it there, it's just making the wound in a different place.
I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand how that relates to what I'm saying. I don't know if you understood me wrong, but what I said. I'm sorry, it's going out.
Your time is taken away.
What I'm saying is, we're going to create more American goods to sell to other countries. That way, we won't have to buy more foreign goods and go deeper into debt. Now, I'm going to go back to this foreign policy question. So, earlier I had said, like, we're going to target certain suspect individuals. I know you guys all have some questions about that. No, it's not based on race. It's not based on gender. Oh, you know what? I'll take it. No, it's not based on gender. But, oh my God, go. Can he go? He can go. Can we use one of his rebuttals too? Yeah, go.
I can use that?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question on the goods that you said that you would produce. I'm just curious, what goods would you make more of that would not cause deflation or inflation in our countries or others? Like, what specifically would you be planning on making?
I decline. This is a foreign policy question.
That's all I'm not.
Mr. Jordan?
There is one last, you said race, gender, you wouldn't classify that on that or culture. What about religion? Because that is a big thing. That does factor in with several of the terrorist organizations in this era.
That's true, but not everyone that is associated with that religion is guilty, and I'm not going to base what I suspect off of religion, race, or gender.
But will the people that work for you, will they?
They will follow the regulations that are in place.
Okay, I am proposing that we move on to gun violence. Okay, gun violence in the U.S. Because even though we do have problems abroad, and that is something that we want to consider, we do have a lot of gun violence issues here in the United States, and so I would like to know what will you do to reduce that? And this question is going to begin with Mr. Howard.
Okay, so in recent years, our view on gun control has been really misguided, in my opinion. I believe that the problem is not with guns, but with our control on how they're distributed. The process is too lenient, I believe. Anyone should be able to get a gun if they want to, but they should have to go through more checks and such to do so.
Colonel.
I believe that if you're going to be someone that is going to own a firearm, if you wish to do so, then you should have to go through some form of a mental mental background check and just to see that you are healthy mentally as well as physically, because you don't want to just go and have someone that randomly could become a danger to just any community in which the gun is possessed, because that's how school shootings occur or other acts of violence that need to be stopped in this nation.
Ms. Holland,
To reduce gun violence in the United States, I would eliminate most weapons. What I mean by that is like basically no one would have a gun unless it's essential. By essential, I mean like military personnel, police officers. But if no one has a gun, then police officers wouldn't need a gun either. But next.
Can I raise my hand now?
It's my candidate's turn.
Okay, as I said before, I am a part of the people, so I believe in the Second Amendment, everyone has the right to bear arms. As most of the other candidates have said, I agree that everyone has the right to get a weapon, and restrictions should be put, moreover, on those weapons, including background checks. However, specifically, I would say that for protection purposes, assault rifles should be very limited. For defense, I don't think everyone should own an assault rifle. I just don't think them as necessary as a normal firearm would be.
I'm just trying to be the tax though. Oh well, now. Next.
Mr. Jordan.
Okay, I've got to agree with everyone, all of my own fellow candidates, except Ms. Holland.
Of course.
Because we should include stricter background checks and psychoeducative evaluations as part of weapon purchases. And I've got to partially agree with Mr. Carden here. And we should limit, purchases on weapons besides standard rifles and pistols, etc. Like anything that seems military grade should be limited to an extent.
Because if you have no means of protection as far as a firearm is concerned, then you have no access, you have no means of defending yourself adequately against someone who breaks into your house or any of the like. Because also people that are going to commit a crime aren't necessarily going to obey the law. So all these law-abiding citizens are going to just put themselves more in jeopardy.
The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The third and fourth word, well-regulated militia. Not anybody, but a militia. What's a militia?
I must answer that.
I don't think we can have a
Mr.
question from the
Jordan,
audience yet.
wait, I'm sorry. I need to know which one of you had your hands up first.
I believe I did, but.
Okay, Mr. Houghton then.
Okay.
Okay, so you said you're planning on no Americans having guns unless absolutely necessary. So how do you plan on removing guns that are already in circulation or preventing guns from being sold illegally?
Mr. Jordan.
Okay, so
Save by the bell. Again.
really?
Always. I start adding on to what I said yesterday. I will continue with Obamacare, but I would also implement new regulations to decrease the amount of people taking advantage of it. Being that new jobs will be created, there will be less people needing Obamacare, which means they won't really be adding to the tremendous debt. And as I have previously stated, with the stricter regulations, there will be closer attention paid to the information to ensure that people actually need the help rather than someone cheating the system.
Wait, if only a few people are going to be actually affected by Obamacare, right? Why have it in effect in the first place?
Because we're the only country in the world, well, one of the only countries in the world, that doesn't have free healthcare.
You're right, yes, but
I think we need it.
it's a step in the right direction on paper, but in practice it has not worked out at all. It has
So
not.
far, it hasn't been that long.
It needs to be. We need to gradually change our healthcare to eventually we can have this free healthcare. But
I think we just need to keep doing what we're doing and enforce it more.
All right, you are each charged with a rebuttal. If you would like to keep going, you can each be charged with another
I
one.
think we got it across.
I got my phone.
Anyone else? That is how I feel about things today. Anyone, I'm saying, all right, so let's see. It's gonna come back to journal. The Affordable Care Act has been a point of contingency with a lot of people. People who never had health care before like it okay. People who already had health care mostly hate it. If given the opportunity, what would you do with the Affordable Care Act? Would you modify it, get rid of it completely, or leave it as is, and why?
I believe that the Obamacare Act needs to be gotten rid of completely at this point in the country's financial state, because we as a nation can't afford to just hand out health care to everyone that seems to qualify for it, because we don't have the regulations input now to say who needs it, who doesn't. So since we're in such a large debt, we need to just get rid of it at this point and maybe try it again later when we're in a better financial state.
Ms. Holland?
As I said before, I believe that we should modify the Health Care Act to make stricter regulations. That way no one can take advantage of it.
Mr. Carden?
As the Colonel said, I agree with him, it needs to be completely overturned. Families are having to pay for a program that benefits people who do not act, who are overpaying and taking unnecessary of what it can actually do. It needs to be eliminated. It has been raised the premiums and the cost of Obamacare, which is something that, as the Colonel said, our economy does not need right now. There's a reason that the enrollment of Obamacare has been half of what it was actually intended for. It's not doing what it needs to be, and it needs to go.
All right, Mr. Jordan?
I gotta agree with Mr. Carden and the Colonel. It does need to be overturned because it's not really, like I said earlier, it's not helping all of everyone. It's just helping the select few who didn't have health care in the first place. I mean, maybe we can have health care in the future and free health care, universal health care, like in the rest of the industrialized world, but not yet. That has to be gradual. It can't just be all of a sudden, just suddenly make it cheap, provided that everyone. We can't just have that. It's not good for our economy in the state it's in at the moment.
Mr. Houghton?
I believe this point is one that most of us can agree on, and that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, needs to be completely eliminated for the moment, as it has not done what it's intended to do and has only increased taxes on the everyday person and the cost of healthcare overall.
Would anyone care to respond?
Sure. I completely disagree with all of them. We are the only, well, not the single only, one of the only countries, as I said before, without health care. You say, Mr. Jordan, you say we can do it in the future. Well, I need a date. I need a year.
It's gradual. We can't just. I don't need an exact year. I mean, things happen. Events happen. I mean, it could be as long. It could take a very long time. It could be like it could be 5 years. It could be 10 years. But
You may keep going if you would like.
it may be 5 years. It may be 10 years. Things happen that could affect how our progress towards this goal of universal health care, which I do hope that this nation achieves one day, but sadly not today. Not in this era.
Mr. Carden, I saw your hand.
You say that you need an exact date for when we would actually be able to establish a new healthcare program. But what I would like to know is, when exactly do you suggest of a correct time that Obamacare will actually work? Because they thought, and by they I mean the Democrats really, had thought that Obamacare would be able to work in the first 2 years of its existence. Well, Obama's nearly out of office, and half the enrollment is gone, and it's been completely negative. There's been very few positives, almost not even worth it. So when do you expect this to actually work?
Would you like to respond?
I'll go after it.
She can
Whenever
go
they
ahead.
all go, I'll go back and get them all. So go
Okay,
ahead.
Colonel.
Next.
I believe that now, like, you're asking, like, when is it gonna be able to happen? Well, it has to be after the substantial amount of debt that we're in has been settled, because the nation can use the tax dollars that citizens pay out of pocket in a much more efficient way and effective way to handle the debt and create jobs and stimulate the economy now, whereas later we might be working towards health care provided by the government to all of our citizens. And we're not just health care behind, also some countries provide insurance, and we're behind there also.
Ms. Holly, would you like to respond to me? Were there any other hands? I'm sorry.
All right, you all hate, well, you have to hate, kind of, Obamacare, right? Well, I just want to know, like, what do y'all propose we do if Obamacare isn't working? I mean, obviously, I mean, you're right, it has some flaws, but that's what reform is for. So, I mean, I don't want to get rid of it. I just want to modify it and make it better than what it is. I think it's a great program, and I think it's doing good things.
Mr. Houghton?
I don't think Obamacare has done anything it's intended to do. It has increased costs of health care. It has, no one who is under Obamacare at this moment is satisfied with what they've been given, considering people who already had existing health care plans cannot keep their doctors, as was promised in the original plan, and costs have only risen.
How many times? There were like 8 seconds left on that one. Also, you can add about 4 rebuttal cards for your people.
We got 4 more.
Yeah, just give me 4 more. Okay, Mr. Jordan.
To add on to what he said, I mean, it was a great idea on paper, in my opinion, Obamacare, but in practice, like I said, it did not work. It didn't work, and we can't have it. We just can't have it. Right, not now.
What if, when the Articles of Confederation failed, everybody was like, we just can't have a government because it's not going to work? You don't give up on things, you fix them.
Exactly, which is what I plan on doing.
But they
You want to get rid of it.
Well, I said get rid of it, but just, we need to reform our healthcare, how it goes, our healthcare industry.
They completely abolished the Articles of Confederation and came anew at a later date with the Constitution of the United States.
It was like a couple of years later. But he's saying in the far, far future.
Not the
I'm
far,
saying-
far future.
Change the subject.
Not in the first millennium.
1, 2, and 3 right there. Each person got 1 on that one. Okay. Class, not staff, guys. All right. Are y'all ready to move on?